when I allowed things to happen that I was truly not okay with. I compromised the value of myself, of my integrity, of what I stood for, of what I believed for, all because I was waiting and wanting something to happen. Ultimately, I delayed my own progress. Ultimately, I delayed my own self from the very things that I knew that I was worthy of because I disvalued myself in the process of the wait. The wait is not meant for you to give up what you believe and who you believe you are. The wait is ultimately for you to grow into this person and for everything that is not meant for you to pass you by. You know, it is true that things can look nice on the outside, but you never know what's happening on the inside of it. And many times the things that we chase, the things that we run after that are not planned for us, they can put on this pretense, they can put on this facade until it gets in. And sometimes God has this way of allowing things that are not meant for you to pass you by. And if you're standing there waiting, then you can feel as though God has forsaken you or forgotten you, when all along God is just protecting you. Don't betray yourself while you're waiting. Don't betray yourself while you're waiting. So many times we can watch other people obtain things that we want, that we desire, or where we want to be. We can envy them so much so that we can begin to emulate them. Not recognizing that sometimes in the emulating process, we are forsaking our own values, forsaking our own worth. I can not think of how many times I have watched one person say, oh, I got this woman, or I got this man, or I got this position, or I got this job because this is what I did. And then if you're in the process of waiting, you begin to emulate that, whether it is openly or secretly. Ultimately, sometimes those things that we are emulating are a direct contradiction of what we are and who we are on the inside. It is only when you stand in the truth of who you are and you stand in the truth of your value, of your inner workings, that you are able to walk into what is really planned for you. For those of you all that need a scripture to go along with this life story, there is a scripture in Matthew chapter number 20. And I want to look at this scripture really quickly just to help us out. For those of you all that don't read scripture, it's okay. You can stay here with us. We're just going to read the scripture to just make it make sense to us. There is this story of this man that owned a vineyard, and he sent the workers out one by one in order to go work the vineyard. There was a group that waited until the very end. And when it came down to it, the foreman called over these particular workers that had been sitting there waiting, and no one had actually hired them. And he called them over to them and he said, why aren't you out there working? Verse number 13. And he says, no one has hired us. And so the man says to him, you go work. You go work. They were the last to be chosen, but they stood there. And one thing that I noticed about this entire story is that they did not grumble. They did not complain. They did not change the character of who they were. They just waited their turn. They watched everyone else go, and they waited their turn patiently. When the foreman came to go pay everyone that was paid, he was instructed to pay the ones that went last first. Now, the ones that went before them, they were frustrated and they were angry because they said, why do they get paid just as much as we got paid? Why did they get paid more? Because we've been out here working all this time. And he said, I'm paying these ones more, and I'm paying them now because they had to wait, because the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. This is a message to everyone in this society and in this culture right now that is battling with seeing so many people receive the rewards for things that you've been waiting for. This is for entire demographics of people that have watched other people be recognized, be noticed. Meanwhile, you've been pushed aside. It can feel like you've been forgotten. It can feel like maybe you need to change the way you do things in order to receive something different, because of course, that's what the world says. You could be listening to people that are telling you how to gain it and how to get it, and they are doing good from their own perspective. But you know what's true to your core. You know what is true to your soul. And what God has for you will never make you compromise who you are and the truth that you choose to walk in. Do you know how many times I have said to myself, it feels like being honest is a curse? Because when I am truthful and when I am honest, sometimes I am often overlooked. But what I have come to recognize and realize in that process is that I am not overlooked at all. I have actually been chosen and I've been selected. And because of that selection process, God protects me from what's not meant for me. Maybe you're waiting today for some big break to happen. Maybe God has spoken into you that things are going to come into your life and it seems like things just keep passing you by. And I'm going to reassure you that indeed things are passing you by. And the reason why God is allowing things to pass you by is because those things would make you compromise the value of who you are and what you're worth, and they're not meant for you. What is planned for you, you'll never have to compromise yourself. There is something so beautiful that is designed for you. And many times the reason why we are not receiving it is because we are too busy being envious and frustrated. And we are too busy changing ourselves, becoming like people that we no longer know, in order to obtain what God has for us. But what God has for you, you will never have to compromise your worth. You'll never have to compromise your value. You can stand still because the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. Your waiting is not in vain. Hold on, because everything that was promised that would come, it will indeed come. Stand still, and you shall see that God never forgot about you. Stand still and you shall see that God was always with you. Stand still and you will see that you are the apple of his eye, and that the things that he has planned for you will make you sit back in awe and wonder. Once you finally walk into what God has for you, I can hear you saying, I'm so glad that I waited. I'm so glad that I did not compromise myself. I'm so glad that I remained authentic to who I am called to be. That while everyone else around me began to change and alter, that I remained the same to the core. And now I can walk into what was meant for me. The last shall be first, and the first shall be last. I want to thank each and every one of you. So many of you have just begun to follow me, and I want to thank you. I want to thank you for every bit of love, for every single note that you leave, for every single comment that you leave. I do read them. Thank you. I love you. This is your season. God bless you. Thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed to everything, please do me a favor. Jump on the link tree and begin to subscribe to every single channel. I thank you in advance. I love you. God bless you. Have a great Sunday.